The world is sick, and we are the doctors. Can Hitler possibly be alive in 2018? How is a movie like this even possible in the age of political correctness? In this episode, we will explore the rabbit hole that is the Iron Sky. Be watchful for the space Nazis from the dark side of the moon, as they're coming to invade a theater near you. This is Media Channels, a multimedia corp production, bringing you information about the latest media trends, helpful tutorials, and commentary on the digital world around you. Welcome everyone, my name is Stuart Rathje, hosting episode number 23 of the Media Channels podcast on July the 14th, 2019. In today's episode, we will explore the soon-to-be cult classic Iron Sky 1 and Iron Sky 2 in the following episode. I just want to briefly mention that this is the first year anniversary of the Media Channels podcast, which will be July the 17th, 2019, and it will be officially kicking off season number 2. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Happy birthday, Ken Rosto.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday! So anyways, they'll be with us today covering, as always, covering the movie review and overview of Iron Sky. In today's episode, the topics we're going to be covering, it's pretty much the same as the last episode. So it'll be style, theatrical points, and directing of the movie, FX, special effects of the Sci-Fi, the cast, the plot and story, Nazis in pink bikinis. Well, no, not really. We're just going to be comparing it to other sci-fi genres, and then we'll be giving it our overall opinion and a rating out of 10. So initially, I didn't think that this movie would be all that good, and I was bored one day and I threw it on Sunday afternoon, and I thought it was probably going to be a B movie, just something to pass the time. But once I sat down and watched it, it started to grow on me. Now, do realize this isn't a blockbuster, and it did get some pretty lousy reviews back when it came out. But I found that it does have some really interesting moments in it, and it does have a niche to it. So the plot, though, isn't overly complicated, I found, and the basic to sum up the movie. It was German Nazis who escaped in 1945. They built secret ships and they escaped Earth. So they started a base on the dark side of the moon. Now, there's some controversy regarding that, but we'll get into that later in the podcast. So they remained there until 2018, building up their small society. And then eventually their plan was to return to Earth and then invade and do world domination, kind of a thing. So the plot was kick-started by an American expedition to return to the moon because the president at the time was worried about not being reelected. So the story takes place mainly between the moon base on the moon, obviously, and New York City. So they also introduced the first female president of the U.S. in the movie, and she had a pretty over-the-top southern accent. Now, I would have thought they were trying to be ultra serious at first with the movie, but there's a lot of humorous moments in the movie and very dry type of humor that you may miss if you're not paying attention carefully. The film was created by a Finn, German, and Australian collaboration, and they allude to various political commentary at the time, which was in 2012 when the movie was created. Coincidentally, Iron Sky 2 is to be released in North American market July 19th, which we'll be doing the following week. So the writers, I found they tend to make fun of every group, and it is a true equal opportunity offender, like a lot of the comedies that you would maybe find on the Fox network. Now, I did have to watch the movie twice to get many of the hidden references in the movie that you may not have seen if you just watch it very casually. Now, the dialogue, of course, is a combination of German and English speech, and it had its fair share of subtitles in it. So if you're not a fan of subtitles, well, you might have to bear through it. So, Ken and Rosto, I would like to welcome you to the podcast. Did any of you have any opening comments about the movie or the film, or wanted to fill in any of the blanks that I may have missed?
Rosto?
Hi guys,
Hello.
how are you doing?
Good.
Thank you. First, I would like to define the movie because, well, let me just say from the beginning that I saw this movie only once, and that was yesterday.
Thanks for being well prepared.
That's because of this podcast, and what I read through several websites talking about this movie, and definition is always different. IMDb says it's action, comedy, and sci-fi. Some other movie webpage, it says it's parody and exploitation. And
Right.
so then there are different opinions about if it's a movie or B movie. B movie, I think, is defined by the budget, actually. So if you
Right.
have average budget, let's say in Europe, if average budget is, let's say, 50 million, so this movie would be, I think, 7 million and something euros, which is, I guess, almost 10 million US dollars. So I guess it's under average of the typical budget. So I guess the movie would be B movie, So,
Okay.
but I need help with my doubt because it says it's a parody, and I'm asking, it's parody of what? Can you guys elaborate with?
Okay, maybe I'll let Ken
my...
go first, and then if there's anything he's missed, then I will fill in.
Well, I, like Rosso, only watched the movie once. I did some background reading on it as well. When I first heard about the film, I guess a few years ago, I'm not sure if it was 2012 or thereafter, but I was kind of thinking it would be inspired by, like, going back to what Rosto said about exploitation movies. There were a subset of, I guess you would call them B movies or exploitation or grindhouse movies back in the 70s and I believe the 80s that explored, that used Nazi symbolism or situations, like, for example, the Ilsa the Wicked Warden series.
Right.
And of course they were very, I don't know, I'm not sure if Rosto's heard of them, but I guess you have, Stu.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I was kind of
Vaguely.
thinking that was the starting point they were used.
Yeah, is this about this female warden in the concentration camp?
Right. Yeah.
Elise, I think. There were like 5 movies, I think, altogether, or something like that.
Right. Like, I kind of thought that's what they were using as a jumping off point when they wanted to make a combination of that sort of movie plus a science fiction thriller plus a political allegory, I guess.
Okay.
So it seemed to me like they were trying to make an updated version of that sort of politically aware, but not beating you over the head with the message films that there were a number of directors back in the 70s and 80s who made films like that where the production values were not the highest, but the filmmaking, well, the Ilsa series is kind of questionable as to its quality, but there are other ones that are a bit more, I can't think of titles right off the bat, but there are others that are a bit more I guess you would say serious in their intent or more successful at getting their messages across.
Okay.
And I kind of thought that's the picture I had in my mind when I first heard of Iron Sky, was that they'd be doing a kind of a mashup of those 70s and 80s sensibilities with modern filmmaking technology and effects.
Right. I think you're correct. They take a lot of modern sensitivities, as you say, from, I guess it would be 2012, and then and include them in the plot. Now, if you're not,
Right.
if you
Yeah.
live under a bridge, you probably wouldn't get the references. But for most people, if you sat down and really had an insightful eye about the movie, you could probably pick up most of the references.
When I hear talking about the exploitation movies from 70s, I would maybe expect more graphic scenes, more explicit
Yeah, there wasn't a lot
stuff.
of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This was pretty mild.
Yeah.
Except that blood splashing from the first astronaut that was shot, from the head. You could see that
Yeah, the CGI blood. Yeah.
CGI blood, and but beside that, like, I mean, no, typically would be some nudity and more, explicit stuff. So,
There was a bit more violence, but not over the top, like you say.
yeah, it was pretty mild. So that's why I am kind of undecided, about the style of the movie. I mean the genre. What's the genre of this movie? For sure it is sci-fi. That's no doubt about that. However,
go ahead.
is this parody, and is this exploitation comedy? I wasn't sure about comedy, if it is comedy, because I mean jokes were good, but I mean the delivery was kind of off. It's like saying the really good joke, but you don't say it right, so no one laughs. You know what I mean? Like I was missing something. The comedic point. I have few chuckles, but not extremely. There wasn't like belly laugh or something. So
if you,
I mean,
I don't know. Maybe your
but-
personality is a little different, but if you watch it a second time, you may get a lot more out of it. But that's just me. I mean, maybe you just generally.
Yeah, I don't, I'm not criticizing or something, but I mean that joke, like in English, you are a knockout, and then suddenly, he got banged out.
I found that really quite amusing, that scene, actually, but that's just
Yeah.
me. That's my
That
weird
was
sense of humor.
Yeah. Also, I laugh about the Udo Kier. I mean, he doesn't have to say anything, that guy, and he's funny. That's
That's
Yeah.
right.
that's without doubt. The guy is funny simply.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to say anything. He doesn't have to even change the facial expression or something. He's just funny guy.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after we decided, like this is actually sci-fi movie, maybe a little bit of comedy,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe there was some action, kind of cheesy, but still there was some action. I can say, you already said the whole story about the movie, and maybe I can add that about the very end, like it was kind of calling for another movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they were planning already on shooting another sequel or not, but it was kind of calling for that. Also, another point, I think this was based on the comic book. I'm not sure about that. I think there are some comic book strip somewhere. Did you guys hear about this? Was this graphic novel before?
No, I don't think so. I think it was. I mean, I'd have to look into it, but and there may have been spin-off comic books published, but I don't think there was an Iron Sky comic book existing before. To my knowledge, anyway. I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen anything really. No, I don't think I've seen anything either. But sometimes with these types of movies, it's very hard to find reliable information. I mean, the wiki page on Wikipedia says it's a comic science fiction, but I mean, it doesn't really say anything about Well, you know what? Let me look it up. I have.
Yeah.
And maybe
Yeah,
you're right. Maybe you're right. Okay, so actually, maybe you're right, Rosto, because on October 5th, 2011, Blind Spot released a digital comic prequel to the film titled Iron Sky, Bad Moon Rising, written by the writer of Alan Wake, Mikko Ratalatti, and fully illustrated by comic artist Jerry Kissel, creator of
Okay, that's Finnish.
So, I mean, yeah, it's not a North American comic, but it is probably very low-key, sort of not mainstream.
But more than some hints to exploitation movies from 70s, I saw some hints maybe more to Star Trek, those Nazis with those outfits. I mean, like those astronautic outfits, they kind of reminded me a little bit of Star Troopers. Is
Yeah.
that
Yes.
possible?
I think they
little
drew
bit, yeah.
inspiration from a lot of different sources, like science fiction films, exploitation films, political comedies, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also, the alarm sound in the ship, it was identical to alarm sound on the Star Trek.
Okay, I didn't notice that, but it could very well be
Mhm.
true.
Yeah.
I didn't catch it either.
Yeah, that sound was identical.
Huh.
I used to watch Star Trek. So like almost everything. So I remember that sound.
Okay. I'll
So
have to.
maybe it was some kind of homage of Timo Vuorensola.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
Some kind of homage to other sci-fi, movies.
It was
could be.
probably a nod to Star Trek. I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I would say the whole style and the director, everything it's a kind of a mashup. They took like Ken was saying, there's a lot of inspiration from different sources, and they've kind of mashed it together and created a cake, I guess, out of it. So that's my
It's
analogy.
kind of like very syncretic. Also, there is this ship, Gotterdammerung. It's hard to, the German, they are experts in the long words. So, Gotterdammerung. Okay, that's actually Wagner's symphony or opera or something like that, right? It's a name of the Wagner's symphony.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember that. Yeah. Very vaguely. Very vaguely.
Don't ask us. We're like, oh,
Okay.
well, no, we'll try. So trust your opinion, Rosto. I mean, it's got so good.
All right. Yeah. And yeah. And I mean, I don't know how successful it was. Did you guys saw the overall budget, like how much money it earned actually altogether? I mean, the budget was 7 point something. And,
according to the wiki, it had an estimated budget of 15 million, and it says here the Finnish Film Foundation and Media Board Brandenburg have come on board to finance the U.S. $13 million project.
Nice.
So,
actually, talking about the budget, first million was actually collected by fans of this genre or fans of this director. Yeah, I think there's
a bit of a long thank you section in the end credits, crediting the people who contributed to, I believe it was a Kickstarter campaign.
Oh, okay.
So it was partially crowdfunded.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that would make sense. It almost seemed like the beginning of the movie, you could almost tell, like maybe the first half an hour, there was almost maybe first half hour there was a different budget, because I found that as the movie progressed, it seemed like the style and the budget and just it seemed to get better, as it was progressed. I don't know, like maybe they started with that budget and started filming, and then they once they got more budget, they got better stuff and better lighting and whatever. And
You know what? You got a point there, because I was actually thinking about this. I had feeling that when they were half through the movie, I had a feeling like they already spent 90% of the budget, and then suddenly they still had this remaining, let's say, 45 minutes, and they said, "Oh, we only have 1 million. What are we gonna do?" So, it sounds like yeah, you're right, because there are those sloppy moments. First, you have perfect CGI, very elaborate, nice, everything is perfect, and then you have some B-movie Ed Woodish fakery, like it was kind of like very very suspicious for me. Like maybe they didn't manage the budget very well. Oh.
So I guess we're getting into the second point now, which is FX. Ken, did you want to add anything? Because we're kind of just sort of flowing into the next point already. But and did you want to say anything else before we continue to flow?
No. I was actually going to start talking about the effects. Actually,
Okay.
there are a lot of CGI effects and background. Like obviously, I'm pretty sure they didn't have the money to build some of the sets like on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure they used like green screen backgrounds.
Oh, for sure.
And CGI generated backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the effects were really, as Russell was saying, like for the big finale, the big action finale with it seemed like the space battles were kind of inspired by the Battlestar Galactica reboot and
yes.
and the show Firefly. I don't mean to sound like they're ripping them off, because maybe to an extent they were, but I mean those two shows I think kind of set the new standard for how space battles get shown on film or television, with a lot of zoom in, zoom outs, elaborate camera movements and rotations and stuff like that.
Right.
So I was impressed by the effects. I remember hearing somewhere that I think the director has a special effects background. I could be wrong about that.
It's quite yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was going to talk about the makeup effects as well.
Okay.
I think we're going to get into the spoiler zone here.
Well, I mean, this movie was released in 2012. I mean,
I guess it's kind of a moot point.
I mean,
most of the makeup effects went to transform the character Washington, the black astronaut who was involved in that ill-fated moon mission at the beginning of the movie that Rosto mentions.
Right.
The villains turn him into, I guess you would say, an Aryan stereotype.
Right.
And that's where I think a lot of the makeup, that was the makeup effect that kind of stuck out the most. Sorry?
I was just gonna say, it almost seems like maybe the budget for the makeup was less than the other effects, because it just seemed like
it wasn't.
It's like they took the film and intentionally color corrected it to be
that's right.
Like a more flat colors, like desaturated.
A lot of gray, dull colors, yeah.
To kind of hide the fact that some of the special effects and the makeup was not right on. But that's just me.
Because it looked like they gave him like blue contact lenses and sort of put on pancake makeup on him and dyed his hair almost Aryan blonde, I guess you would say.
I think he was wearing a wig, but that's maybe not. But
you could be right. I don't know. Yeah, I think you're probably right.
It's kind of stuck out, but
it was pretty distracting, I thought. I mean, no, this was not the fault of the actor. I believe his name is Christopher Kirby. It wasn't his fault. But it wasn't carried off very well, that effect. It was just kind of creepy and distracting, I thought. I know they put that. It was an interesting plot point, but I guess they were trying to create sympathy for Washington's character, that he was subjected to that, and they were trying to show the villains are very fiendish and sadistic, I guess you would say. But the effect didn't really. It was more distracting than involving for me.
You know what? There's the possibility that perhaps they did that on purpose. Maybe they were trying to be over the top with that as sort of a plot point, just to add to the whole ridiculousness of the movie. I mean, I know they're not trying to be too serious about it, but possibly. What do you think, Roster? Do you think they were intentionally trying to make him look over the top, or?
I kind of think so, because if you see the other effects, you have this spaceship and you see these huge bicycle chains, and those buttons are like from like from 40s, like those old machines and everything else.
Right.
And it's all kind of like very very old and modern at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe even this how they call it, albanization, like they use this albanizer, to change his color of this guy. So maybe they botched it, because they didn't have the
Interesting point.
really good resources at the moon. They were there, but you cannot develop if you don't have, it's too small group, to develop the science and everything else. Basically, you have just one scientist. That was also very this Dr. Frankenstein,
Dr. Jekyll Frankenstein, whatever, mash.
slash, I don't know, slash Einstein slash Mengele, whatever. You have this universal scientist, and he's actually authority because he doesn't have any competition. He's just by himself.
That's right. And he also created USB, the Universal System Binding, when he's trying to connect the cell phone
exactly.
to the 1940s mainframe. I created it. I'm the best.
Yeah. That was pretty good.
Yeah. So you got a point there. It was probably botched on purpose. Like. He doesn't look good, that guy.
No, he looks pretty crazy.
He looks pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was kind of alarming.
And that was maybe another funny thing when I saw that little bottle albanizer, and then actually subsequently he used the de-albanizer. That was
yeah.
That was funny. That was really funny. And about the effects, typical green screen, of course, throughout the whole movie, except there are a few scenes, they are kind of Ed Woodish scenes, kind of like really cheap scenes, like let's say the landing of the Earth spaceship. You can clearly see it's a toy. They did it in some kind of room, and it's a toy.
The saucers were I don't know, the CGI or whatever they were doing there. It was pretty low budget compared to the rest of the movie, for sure.
No, but some scenes were amazing. Some of the scenes were amazing.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, some scenes were very cheap and not quite delivered. So about the effects, what I really admired was the costumes. Those Nazi leather, coats and uniforms and skull sigil and the swastikas. That was really amazing. I think that was amazing. And I actually like my favorite character, Renate Richter, and she was amazing in that uniform. That was also a really nice effect.
And out of it.
And I didn't like her after, when she did herself under the lead of the campaign manager. She kind of changed her looks.
Yeah.
I didn't like her after. Yeah, she changed the style, and uh, yeah, she was much prettier in the uniform. So the guy, I don't know who did the costumes, but it was really nicely elaborated,
Mhm.
So that's what I liked about the effects and everything else. I
I'd
don't know
have
if
to
you want.
agree.
Yeah,
Yeah, the costuming was well done.
yeah, yeah. It was really. But then I don't understand that change, because I was expecting some kind of majestic arrival of the Führer and his, like his suite, like his suite, I don't know how you call it. And they came to presidential, to White House. They came kind of like very demeaned,
Subdued, like.
very subdued, very.
Yeah, yeah,
I,
yeah.
I thought they would come like this, like very confident, very arrogant, very with like Ubermensch, you know, attitude. And they came like a bunch of, clowns, basically. That was kind of put down for me, you know. I thought they would come and take over. They would be barking
Hmm.
orders, like
Yeah,
typical
interesting.
Nazis. And they just came like kind of like nobody,
Hmm.
so that was really weird for me, you
That's a good
know.
point, Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I never thought about that, but I think you're right.
yeah. And they changed all the Nazi costumes. They changed it for some sort of like politically correct uniforms. So
No.
there wouldn't be swastikas and skulls, but there would be some symbols that are acceptable for
Right. Yeah.
other people and so on. That
Hmm.
was kind of put down for me. I was expecting, like this arrogant and angry Nazi coming, and ordering to president of the United States, and that was put down. But what do you say, guys?
Uh, you know what? You make a good point, I think. It does seem like they allowed themselves to get sort of manipulated into that whole new uniform or whatever that I guess was the president's Vivian Wagner, the president's assistant, kind of.
Right.
Yeah,
The
yeah. Manager of the campaign.
Right, the campaign manager, and I thought she was I thought she was the best actress of them all. I liked how she chewed up the scenery. I thought she was cool.
Sometimes maybe she
She
over.
was the one who was taking it. She was taking a bit over the top. That was more. I wanted to see more of that.
She, in certain points, she overdid it.
no, you
I
sure it
think.
wasn't the Ken? You sure it wasn't the fact that she was wearing leather in a good portion of the movie? Was it?
That might have
Might have had
affected
Yeah,
some
my
influence.
somewhat.
that's
Might have
always
been, yeah.
pleasant for. That's always pleasant for your eyes, So that's
I don't
okay.
know what that says about me, but oh well. I enjoyed her performance.
Right, right, right. Okay.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, she was good.
Yeah,
Much
yeah,
better, of course, much better than the. But I think we are jumping from
From effects to cast, yeah.
FX to
yeah,
cast very, very flawlessly. I don't know if
yeah.
uh, I about I go back to effects, so we keep 2 points. That scene you were talking about, Ken, about this galactic. There was this carpet bomb. How we call it? Carpet
Oh, carpet
bombing.
bombing. Carpet
Carpet
bombing.
carpet bombing of the this secret base in
Right.
swastika form.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think those blasts were too small? It was kind of, I don't know. It was
Yeah.
I see more fire, more, like
Yeah, but
uh,
there's no oxygen, so there couldn't be fire.
Okay, yeah, no, okay. I see where you're going. Okay, so
So there.
when there is
Eh.
no when there is no oxygen, those blasts would be smaller, you're saying?
Well, I don't think there would be visible flame. I mean, there would still be impact, but I don't think there'd be visible flame.
Okay,
Um,
of course. Yeah.
I'm not sure on the science of that. I would say,
Well, I'm no expert either, but
But I mean, that base was filled out with the oxygen because they need to breathe,
mhm.
right?
oh
S-
yeah, well yeah, true.
So when there is a blast, there will be oxygen would be supporting the flames, or I don't
Well,
know.
yeah. I mean inside the base, yeah. But I thought you were talking about that part when they blow basically a whole big chunk out of the moon, and you can sort of see the Earth through it.
Mm,
No, no, I'm talking more about this when they were bombarding the base.
Yeah, yeah.
towards the end,
Okay,
right? Um,
okay.
maybe. It's hard to say. I mean,
The-
for me, it wasn't like I'm not going to watch the movie because the explosions are too small. But I mean, it could be the
Yeah.
case.
Well, okay, I'm just making a point. What I'm trying to say, like maybe you're right, maybe
explosions, big ones.
Like
Yeah.
Michael
Yeah.
Bay explosions,
yeah. So
Bay explosions.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
I
the-
mean, well, and then the other thing too is the big mothership. I don't know what they called it, but the mothership there at the end. I thought the special effects is very sort of steampunky and
oh, you mean
Yeah,
you mean Götterdämmerung?
yeah, yeah. With the chains and the grinding gears and stuff. Yeah, that was pretty impressive, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was pretty nice. Yeah. And also, I like the Zeppelins.
mm,
And the thought, I like the thought that they actually were throwing the rocks, a huge chunk of rocks. The Zeppelin was importing this rock, and then they
Oh, yeah,
released it.
yeah.
And it was
oh,
actually
the asteroids, right?
The asteroid
Yeah.
bombardment, yeah.
Yeah. That was really cool, actually. That was it. That I think that was unique. I never seen to use like little asteroid as a bomb, and I never seen it in any other movie. So that was pretty unique. I like that.
Yeah.
I think I've actually seen that before in I'm not sure if it was in a comic book or another movie, but I have seen that employed before, but I don't think it's a device that gets used very often. I'm sure it's been used in like science fiction pulp stories from back in like the pulp magazine science fiction stories from back in the 30s and 40s and stuff like that.
Mm.
But it's
Oh,
not
okay.
something you see on screen very often, no.
No,
Okay.
you don't see that. Yeah, they tend to use either some laser beams or the actual bombs, maybe fill out with I don't know, some uranium or whatever. But I never seen just to throwing rocks, basically huge asteroids.
Although there was one episode in Stargate SG-1, maybe season 3 or 4. I'm not sure. I can't remember which season, where that Goa'uld or however you pronounce it, the evil parasites, where they took an asteroid and then propelled it towards the Earth to try to get around like a peace treaty that they had with another alien race. So it's probably not used that, as you say, not used that much, but it does have an interesting take on it. But
yeah, that was really interesting. I don't know about the location. I don't know. Did you guys check the location of the filming?
I didn't, but I can look it up for sure.
Was it also in US? Let me see.
The location
was
was
in
supposed to be New York, but whether they filmed it in New York is another matter.
Nah, they wouldn't. Yeah, I see some Australia here, Germany, Finland, and New York actually. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah. some scenes were filmed in New York. Yeah, that was pretty cool. So
Okay.
no, I thought it's CGI too. I thought the New York is actually CGI, but now I see it's real. So
Yeah, I think for some of those street level scenes where they first come to Earth and they're interacting with those thugs, I'm pretty sure those were New York locations.
Yeah, maybe that's why they bump up the budget or something.
That's right. That was actually
Yeah,
a
could
funny
be.
scene there where he didn't realize that he had been converted to an Aryan, and he's trying to be all buddy with
Yeah,
the gangsters there, and then he's like, "Oh geez, what did they do to me?" And they're like, "You're not one of us."
Yeah.
Then he saw himself in the mirror and
Yeah.
he find the bitter
Right.
truth. Actually,
Yeah.
there is one scene when Renate Richter is talking first time to Washington, and in that scene only one eye is blue.
Really?
I mean, like he's slowly
Yeah,
changing.
you're right. Like
Yeah.
they're foreshadowing the change. Yeah.
Yeah, they foreshadowing the change, and that was also very nosy, I think, for me. It was very disturbing, and you could clearly see it's a lens contacts, with the color or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, and then only later he changes completely, So
Right.
I didn't
yeah.
didn't personally notice that, but I'll have to keep an eye on it if I watch the movie again.
Yeah,
it was-
because the room is very dark except for he and Renata's faces, I think. And
yeah.
you can sort of see that. Yeah, that's right, Ross. You can sort of see that his eye has subtly changed from
Yeah.
from the usual eye color. That's right. Yeah.
Just one.
Just the one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess we'll continue on with cast then, since we already started touching on it. Did either of you have a favorite character?
Yeah, my favorite character.
Well, I mean, I think both you and Rosto had the same favorite character. Oh, actually, no, he didn't. He had. Well, I mean, yeah, they're both women, but.
Well, I thought the lady who played the president. I mean, obviously she's a Sarah. Well, to me, it seemed like she was a Sarah Palin knockoff. So I thought she did.
Oh, really? I got the impression she was like really maybe from Louisiana or something. She's right into. I mean, Sarah Palin was has a more. Well, she was from Alaska, right? But. Okay, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
she's got a southern accent. Yeah.
So actually, you could be right about the Sarah Palin thing because
maybe in the way she costumed herself in the glasses.
Yeah, she was.
But in terms of the accent, yeah.
She was always exercising, nonstop exercising. Like she was making all these high level decisions when she was exercising. It was like this thing she was doing there, always on the treadmill.
Yeah.
And some of the comments she made, it was, what was one of her comments? It was like, I know the one you're talking about. When she talks about the Nazis, I think it was her who said that they're the only guys we beat in a fair fight. Yeah.
I liked that line. I thought that was pretty clever.
Right. She had a sort of pro-gun, like American sort of, like a George Bush, female version of George Bush, I guess, because I mean that's when he was. That would have been as he was leaving his presidency, but which was kind of, I guess, foreshadowing for the fact that the name of the spaceship was called the George
H.W. Bush, I think.
Yeah. The name of the secret spaceship that they were hiding from the rest of the UN.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, she was an interesting character for sure. I don't think she was like the best character, but she had her moments.
She had her moments, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But Vivian Wagner was my favorite.
Yeah. And Klaus Adler there, I found it really funny that he kept getting the name of the Führer wrong. He kept saying "Hail Hitler," when he's like, "That's not my name. That's not my name. My name is Wolfgang." I can't pronounce it, but he's like, Korsflesk or something to that effect. But he's like, that's not my name. But he was an interesting character. I mean, he was kind of, I guess he was a little bit bland in some circumstances, but he was kind of like power hungry and whatnot. But I mean, I don't know what you guys thought of him, but
yeah, there was some of the cast members were kind of bland. I think it was because they weren't given a lot to do other than sort of drive the plot forward, I guess. I mean, other than that one line I mentioned about they're the only guys we ever beat in a fair fight. The dialogue, there could have been more dialogue that was kind of snappy like that. I would. It seemed like a lot of the dialogue was just like exposition, and to me anyway, it could have used a bit more snappy dialogue. That would have been nice.
Right. Okay.
I think.
And then Udo Kier. I mean, he's been in a lot of different films and movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, as Ross was saying at the beginning, he doesn't have to do much. He just has to stand there.
And just had that chronic cough he had. Like every once in a while, he goes.
Yeah.
It seemed like that was the only real kind of wrinkle he threw into this performance.
Yeah, they were trying to say like he's a sick bastard, I guess.
Yeah, but it didn't really seem like he was given all that much to do. Like he can the usual.
Yeah,
with the acting.
not much dialogue there.
Right,
for him. He just said, "Is this a joke?" And then later on, he said something else. I think altogether maybe 5 sentences he said throughout the movie.
He didn't get a lot to do.
Yeah.
Which is a wasted opportunity, I think.
Right. I mean, he's a popular actor. I mean, they could have probably put him to better use than they did, but
I think so. Yeah.
But I mean,
when you're thinking about that, I believe you guys saw the Blade, right? Udo Kier was there as a leader of those aristocratic vampires.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that.
Did he say more than 2 things there? I don't think so. Yeah.
I think he had a few things to say, but he was not really the main villain. That was like Stephen Dorff playing Deacon Frost. I think he was supposed to be the villainous centerpiece of the film. I think Udo Kier was supposed to be more of a supporting character. He made an impression, but it was basically Stephen Dorff's show as far as Blade was concerned, I thought.
Okay. Yeah. Well, not to spoil it, but he comes back as a character in the second installment, and I believe he has a lot more lines and a lot more.
Oh, he does? Okay, I haven't watched it yet, so.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I think they make a lot better use of him in the second installment as well. And if you don't mind, I just want to backtrack 1 second, just to talk about Vivian Wagner again. There was one scene at the beginning of the movie where it was pretty comical because she's pretending that there was a movie that came out. I don't remember what year, but it was a docudrama type of thing about Hitler called
Downfall.
Downfall, right. Yep. So she mimics that scene where it's basically the scene is called Hitler's Rant. And so she's kind of like imitates that scene. I mean, as a woman, she may not be able to do it perfectly like Hitler did in the thing. But back in 2012, that particular scene was being memed like crazy all over the world. People are putting all kinds of different words into Hitler's dialogue and replacing it, and it was just one of those things that if you've never seen the movie Downfall, then you probably would never get the reference. But it was pretty popular meme back in the day. I don't think you see it too much anymore. But
I'm one of the weirdos who's seen Downfall, but I haven't watched any of the memes, so I'm sort of like bass backwards to the rest of the world.
Right.
But I did hear about that phenomenon, but I never actually watched any of the memes. So
Did you catch that, Rosto? Any of the memes that came from that, or?
No, I didn't actually. I never seen this documentary, and I didn't realize that was some Hitler from some Hitler's speech, dialogue or whatever, or something like that. You
Right.
know,
Okay.
she sounded crazy. I mean, she was really, vigorous and
Right.
yeah,
And
very,
that's
but
what's the kind of the humorous part of it, because she was imitating that scene where Hitler, he's losing the war and he's about to get overrun, and so he brings in his top generals and he says everybody else out of the room. The room was filled with maybe 40 people, and he says everybody else out except for this person, this person, this person, this person. Then he goes on his rant, and he's like going crazy and whatever.
oh,
but-
okay, that's what she did actually.
yeah, so that scene was
Yeah,
imitated
yeah,
almost down.
yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
I
I mean,
know
if you
that.
didn't know about the reference, you probably wouldn't have gotten it, and it would have seemed
Yeah.
out of place otherwise. But yeah, that was me backtracking. So I mean, we can continue on, but
Yeah.
and then so we didn't cover. I think, well, I mean, we touched upon the crazy scientist, I guess, Dr. Richter, or however you pronounce it, but
Okay, that was father actually of Renate Richter.
Renata. Yeah.
right,
Yeah, that was her father actually.
yes,
And you know what? From this movie, I know only two actors. That is Getz Otto and Udo Kier. All the rest of the filming crew, I never heard of. I never seen them. And this is the first time I saw this Julia Dietze.
okay,
She's actually very cute, and had in the movie she has this really refreshing naivete and slash also kind of like wisdom, because once she saw that Great Dictator is actually not only 10 seconds, shot, but it's actually the whole movie. She kind of switched the sides.
right.
So it's really interesting character. Like you can see her like really naive and cute, kind of like bimbo type of girl. But
Well,
on the other hand,
yeah, I mean, you could say that, but she was basically the teacher. She was her official title was it was earthly history or earthly
yeah, exactly.
something
But
to that effect. But
they presented her such, like kind of like a little bit of like naive but then she surprises you, because she's actually she's witty, she knows history, she knows things, she can put, things together and figure out. So for me, she was really, I liked her in that movie. I liked her very much. I didn't like her when she stripped off the uniform and she changed it for this civic clothes. I mean, I didn't like her visually. I mean, as she was much more interesting in that uniform. And of course, Goetz, Otto, and Udo Kier, those are really experienced actors, in the role of Klaus Adler and the I guess second Führer or the third, I don't know.
I guess it probably the second, or yeah, it wasn't really made clear, I guess, but
Well, I mean, the story was from 2018, so I guess it was maybe third.
mm-hmm.
He wouldn't be able to, he would have to have like 100 years, because when you thinking about that, the war ended in 1945, and then 2018 we have some more than 60 years gone. So I think this was the third Führer, and the Klaus Adler was aiming to be the fourth one, I guess, right?
Right.
So I really liked those two actors. They were excellent, I think. Like I said before, Udo Kier, he doesn't have to say anything. He's just really strong character, kind of charismatic persona, as well as Goetz Otto is also excellent. I have kind of my doubts about Christopher Kirby. I don't know if he has some A movie experience, because I don't see him like a very great actor. Also, I don't know why one astronaut is speaking some hip hop English. Astronauts should be more educated. Like he should be speaking King English. Not this. He's got this, like kind of brother English.
Are you
You know what?
talking about James
Well,
Washington, or
yes, I'm talking about James Washington.
so James Washington, he at the beginning of the movie, it alluded to the fact that he was actually not an astronaut but a fashion model or something to that effect.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch that one. I thought, because it was kind of, it was really weird for me. Like, astronaut should be educated Harvard guy, like with the proper English and everything else, and he was kind of like hip hop guy, talking about brothers and so
Yeah,
it was really confusing for me.
well, that was actually part of the plot. Like the president of the United States, she was having trouble with her polling numbers or something to that.
Yeah,
and she wanted to boost up her election platform, I guess, for the next election. So she says, "Well, we're going back to the moon, and we're going to send some popular guys." So, I mean, you know how it is with politically correct things. So you got to send somebody who's, I don't know, popular and.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. Yeah, of course. Maybe there was some, wasn't this some kind of, like introducing to Obama, maybe?
I don't know.
I don't know about that. I mean, Obama was always a fairly well-spoken dude. Or
No, I know.
Well-spoken dude. I'm sorry. I should say he was a well-spoken president, as opposed to a dude.
That's
So,
okay.
I think that's one of the lines in the movie. Something about dude.
Oh God, maybe I can't remember. But I don't know if he was supposed to represent an Obama figure. I kind of figured it was it was sort of the impression of. I kind of thought he might have been more of a Jesse Owens character.
Okay.
Okay.
That's more of the impression I got. I believe it was Jesse Owens who ran in the race.
Okay.
I don't know about that.
Okay. I'm just.
Also, just
I'm going to Wikipedia.
I just want to, conclude this, at least for my side, I want to conclude this cast point. Of course, Peter Sargent, in the role of Vivian Wagner, manager of the, campaign manager of the president re-elect. She was also very, very well, her acting was well delivered. I think it was all those like emotional scenes when she was pissed, or when she decided she will, kick, ass of those Nazis, bombarding the moon and so on. That was really, really nice delivery from her. But what I want to say, I think you have 6 or 7 main characters, and all the others are like kind of like minor characters which you don't even remember.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate.
I mean, those officers, those representatives in the UN. I don't remember them anymore. So they were like kind of like side acting.
Yeah, I think they were there just to have that big set piece near the end where the big slow-mo where they discover the helium. They find out about the helium-3 being on the moon, and then it turns into a big free-for-all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So
Well,
so
that's
basically
that's your cue to a sequel right there.
exactly.
Right. Yeah, like the very ending of the film.
Right. Okay. So I'd like to sort of continue on here before we get too far into the time. So now I guess we'll continue on into the plot and the story. Now we've been covering some aspects already. So Ken, did you want to start on this one?
Yeah, I think so. I think Rosto mentioned at one point that it's a fairly standard story structure with some social commentary, political commentary, comedy, some dry comedy, and action set pieces. So it's a conventional narrative, I guess you would say. The thing that sticks out the most for me was the twist ending where we just talked about how the various representatives of the UN get into that big fight over the rights to who has rights to the helium-3 deposits that the Nazis were mining on the moon.
Okay.
And then, of course, the very ending where it zooms out from the planet Earth and you see nuclear missiles start, impacting different countries,
Right,
which is
yeah.
basically signaling that all the nations have decided to go to war. Well, what I figured, all the nations have decided to go to war against each other.
Right. Yes,
for the
sure.
rights to the helium-3.
Right. I would agree with you. It's a very classic sort of good versus evil for the most of the part, and then
Right.
Then
Right.
at the end, it turns out nobody's good or evil. It's basically
Shades
a
of gray.
man for yourself, I guess, or survival of the fittest at that point. But
Yeah.
Pure human greed, like that's I
Right.
think that's what they wanted to say.
yeah, I think they made
Kind of a nihilistic message. But
yeah, they made a comment about if we get this helium-3, we'll have 1,000 years of our power supply, basically. Like we'll never have to worry about power again. So
yeah.
But I don't know too much about helium-3 from a scientific point of view, but apparently it has been something that's been around for a while, and it's very hard to what's the word I'm looking for? Not synthesize, but get it to be stable, I think is the word.
Guys, I meant to ask you, isn't helium the gas that would change your voice?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes, yeah.
And there's also apparently a shortage of it now too.
Yeah, there was this scene. They inhaled a little bit of this helium, but nobody would change I was expecting they would change the voice, but didn't happen actually.
Oh.
That was kind of.
I don't remember that. I have to admit.
That was kind of non-consistent with the typical, like people would inhale the gasps of this helium, and they would have this funny Mickey Mouse voice or whatever. And this didn't happen actually in this movie.
Would you like to do an imitation of your helium impression, Rosto?
No, thank you.
If I would have known you would have said that, I would have set up something on my mixing board here to make your voice a little more helium like.
Cool.
Yes, you don't do any sound effects.
No, I haven't done any sound effects, but if you want, I can slap you around a bit. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if you heard those sound effects or not, but they are on the track.
Didn't.
Oh, okay.
I guess I don't deserve that.
I did not.
Okay, that's okay. They'll be recorded in the final recording anyways, but...
Cool.
So anyways, back to the plot and the story. Obviously, there was a lot of hidden references in there. One of them was... I'm trying to think of it now. Actually, I think we covered a lot of them already. Oh no, the one I wanted the point I wanted to bring up is when they were at the UN, the member states or countries, they're having their secret meetings about the attack on the U.S. They find out that the U.S. has this warship, this spaceship, right? And then all of a sudden, out of the woodwork, all these other countries, they come out with their spaceships, and they're saying, "Well, you're not supposed to have spaceships," and well, why do you have a spaceship? You know, it's part of our treaty is not to have these warships. And then the Finns, the president of the United States says, okay, well, since we got all these ships, I mean, who here doesn't have their ship armed? And then the Finns sheepishly put up their hand, and they're like, oh, great, now we got someone who has a spaceship but it's not armed, and everybody else is armed, kind of a thing. But and I thought that was funny, because as I'm a part Finn, and you know, the Finns were always typically, I mean, they're not against guns or anything, but they use it as a last resort. It's not something that's a big part of their society. Like, they're not armed to the teeth like a lot of these other countries are. So I thought that was a good reference. But
it's pretty clever.
Just hunters
and hunter-gatherer society, as opposed to militarily aggressive.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. About the story, I think again I have to talk about the budget. You know, they like you said, it's very mashed up. It's very squeezed. You know, you have 90 minutes, and you need to cover so many points, you know, in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why you can say it was really fast-paced, the whole movie. You know, you don't have any break. You know, you just go. Right from the beginning. It's an action to action and dialogue to dialogue. So it's kind of squeezed.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get easily bored. You know, so.
I think that's a good thing. I mean, back in the 80s, a lot of movies went down that route, I should say, where, you know, a 90-minute movie and not, because today we have a lot of longer movies, so they expand the plots a lot more. But if you're looking for something a little lighter, this would be the movie. But if you're looking for something that's a lot more in depth, I mean, yeah, you're right. This is highly compressed, and they leave a lot of, I guess, details out for the sake of it.
Yeah, it's very like zip file.
Zip file.
I think it's question of the money. I think, yeah.
You think so? What's your take on it, Ken?
On the budget? Sorry?
Well, on the time frame and how compressed the plot was.
It didn't feel too compressed to me any more than other films of that genre, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, but they opened so many topics, you know, so that's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, true, but I mean, they want to keep it to a certain time frame so that people don't get bored and shifting out of their seats, and because unfortunately, I think we discussed this before, that people aren't, well, I mean, sometimes they're willing to sit still, like say for Avengers Endgame, that was like 3 hours, but you absolutely have to be throwing imagery and new plot developments and huge battles and such to keep their attention. I don't think a movie like Iron Sky would. I don't think it'd benefit from being like a
too long
plus.
Yeah,
a
too long.
2 hour plus. I think it'd be more. I think you'd be asking more of the audience than they'd be willing to commit to.
Okay.
Because as Stu said, it's not a blockbuster, so people aren't willing to buy a big tub of popcorn or a 5-liter container of Coke and sit there and.
I think you have a fair amount of fans of these kind of movies around.
It's a very dedicated, there are, but it's a very niche subset, I guess, or segment of fans, I guess you would say. They probably like buy it on Blu-ray and sit at home and watch it, or they might go see it in a repertory theater.
Yeah,
like they have drunk movie night screenings here in Toronto now,
oh, really?
where people can. Yeah, like for certain um I don't know exactly what films this place has put on, but they encourage people to like actively participate, like in much the same way as people participate at the Rocky, the various Rocky Horror Picture Show showings where people like sing the songs and that. I guess they encourage people to have a few brews and yell at the characters on the screen. I think it would
Right.
be, I, I think it would be that sort of audience that would more appreciate a movie like Iron Sky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I tend to agree. I mean, it's not a mainstream movie for sure. I don't think its intention was to bring in $400 million,
No, no, I don't think so.
No. No. Definitely.
but maybe that's what I like about the movie is they're not trying to be like everybody else. They're trying to be what they are in their own
Yeah.
way. So
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were entirely successful at it, but there are good things about it. And I think they did make an honest effort.
well, just wait until we get into number two. I guess probably next week.
Yeah,
It's I won't spoil it, but I mean it's a lot more than what the number this one is. So
okay, that's what I'm looking forward to.
okay. And as for the story, I found that the story was easy to follow. I did in the plot. I mean, I didn't find any problems figuring out what was going on or anything like that. So I mean, it's got that going for it, right?
Yeah. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. Basically, the story was established from the beginning.
Right.
You know.
Yeah,
We see right away the base. We see the landing of the two astronauts or slash model or whatever, and we see right away what's going on. So it's pretty clear.
yeah. The storytelling is competent. It's just not. It's not like a horribly put together student film by any means. It is very competently told. It is, it's competently told. It's just I wish there was a bit, like I said before, I wish there was a bit more snappy dialogue or exposition sort of thing. It was a bit I guess bland. I thought kind of bland, I guess.
Well, it certainly wasn't an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where you have tons of one-liners and whatnot. But I thought they tried to put some in anyways to sort of give it a lighter feel. But
there was, but it was like you said, it's a very dry humor, and I'm not sure that that's the best way to go for a movie like this.
Right.
Like the subtle humor. Like there are people out there, like obviously you, Stuart, you got a lot of the references. I have to be honest. I think I probably missed a lot of stuff. I think the line I mentioned before about they're the only guys who beat in a fair fight. That's the one that I remember.
Okay.
But
yeah,
well, it's not a movie going for a date, with a girl or something.
No.
Well, you could, but there probably wouldn't be a second date. Well, you never know. There might actually be if she's a comic book fan, and into that kind of thing. I mean, maybe she has pink and green hair. Maybe there would be a second date.
Possible.
Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to get off topic, but yeah.
That's.
So you're talking about you've dated women with pink and green hair?
No, I was talking about you. Maybe that's your thing.
Me?
Yeah.
I'll have to get back to. I'll have to remember my history and get back to you on that.
Okay, put it in your notes, and we'll cover it next week. We want all the details.
Yeah.
Oh,
there
boy.
are probably pretty pathetic details on my part, so it's probably not worth going over. But
right. Okay. Was there anything else on the plot and story category that we should elaborate on for our listeners and viewers?
Not that I can think of.
I don't think I had anything to add. Rosto?
No, I think we exhausted everything.
Yeah, I think so. I think we can just continue on. So when it compares to other sci-fi genres, obviously you have the big blockbuster genres, like let's say we'll just take Stargate for instance, the whole franchise, Star Trek, Star Wars, and whatnot. Obviously, it's a different type of market, but
well, it's less serious, like
right.
for sure. Like I said at the beginning, I clearly could hear this alarm sound in the battleship. That was the same, identical to Star Trek, but that's probably the only reference to Star Trek. I mean,
I,
but then, yeah.
I kind of
But
wish I
then,
was listening to that, because then we could kind of figure out if it was a deliberate, intentional way to sort of mock Star Trek. But who knows? Maybe.
I think more than mock, it was kind of like a homage.
Like a tribute or homage.
Tribute,
yeah.
okay.
I don't think it was meant to mock. Yeah, I don't think it was meant to mock Star Trek. It was like they were making sort of a subtle reference, probably.
Okay.
Hey, we're fans. Here's an alarm sound that you might recognize.
Yeah.
Well, people...
also those, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, those not the uniforms. I mean those outfits, astronaut overall, whatever. They kind of look like Star Troopers from Star Wars, I think.
Well, now I know what you're talking about. I don't think it's Star Wars. It's that sort of, it's a it's from another movie, I think. I can't remember what it's called. That was sort of semi-popular in where they have it almost looks like they're underwater sort of suits with the big sort of helmets. Maybe that was actually is the uniform they used back in the 40s, but I can't remember my history, but okay. Well, anyways,
you got me.
Yeah. I'm sure I've seen it somewhere before, but I just can't quite put my finger on it.
It's very hard to compare this movie with other sci-fi stuff, because even the battle, it's more battle not of the nations, but you have only like few ships invested in this battle. It's not like a huge slaughter or genocide, like those type of movies like Independence Day, so many people dies and so on. This is just like kind of like battle of basically for few people. I don't see some huge slashing, so it's hard to compare to something, this movie, like I don't know. I cannot.
Can.
You can? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys watched. I mentioned the TV show Firefly before. I don't know if you guys saw the movie Serenity, which is like the sort of the movie that ended the Firefly story. It came out back in 2005, I think.
Oh.
They had a space battle at the end that was that was pretty structurally similar to the one that's in Iron Sky, where it's just the Firefly crew plus the operative who's chasing them, and they get into a bit of a space set to with these mutants called the Reavers that basically they were one of the villains of the Firefly show. Okay. And the Firefly crew are caught in the middle of this battle. It was kind of similar in scale and photography and camera style to that battle, I thought. And like as you were saying, Ross, it wasn't a huge, massive space battle. It was just a smaller number of ships that were basically.
Yeah, it seems like they didn't want to kill any civilians or like civilian people.
Yeah, it wasn't a big apocalyptic showdown where the population of Earth was in the balance. I mean, there were a few bombing run scenes. I remember when there was some devastation in New York, but it wasn't like global.
So Ken, just keep that in mind. Just before you watch the second one, just keep in mind what you had just said there about the apocalyptic scenario there. So.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Same with you, Ross. So I mean, having seen the second part already. I know you guys haven't, but having seen the second part of the movie already, I can tell you that it escalates very, very quickly from what
Interesting.
happened. So,
let's see. I didn't watch it yet, so.
Cool.
Well, I mean, there was some bombardment of the Nazi base, and you could see like the debris, and the building was all smashed up. However, the people were actually alive. Some of them were injured, but they were, sitting there and they were greeting the new Führer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Renate kind of becoming the new Führer. So
Yeah.
I don't see any civilian casualties and apocalyptic notch of the movie. It's really like small battle and.
Well, kind of. I kind of got the idea from. I think the people who were left in the bunker with Renata. I kind of got the impression after like the ending shot of the film that they're going to be the only remnants of humanity really left. Because it kind of looked like all life on Earth was going to get wiped out by the nuclear strikes. No, I don't know. Stuart's seen the sequel, so I don't know if that's what actually happens.
I'm not going to reveal because
okay, all right.
maybe people in North America haven't seen it. So,
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Let's wait. Yeah. Let's wait.
I mean, it is being released next week, so we'll do the spoilers after that, but not this week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I did have a point I was going to make, but I had forgotten what it was, and I should have just typed it while I was thinking about it. But anyways.
Well, my point is it's pretty unique, I think.
Okay, now this isn't a direct comparison, but have either of you seen the movie Spaceballs?
Yes, I have many moons ago.
Yeah, exactly.
I've probably watched
was
it.
Was Joe Candy on that?
John Candy was, yeah, he was.
And what's his name? The guy who was in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Rick Moranis.
Rick
he
Moranis.
played Dark Helmet.
Yeah. Dark Helmet. So now I saw it back in the day when it came out, and I think I probably saw it in the 90s again, and then just recently, maybe 6 months ago, I watched it with my my friend in my place. It was quite the blast of the past, but obviously in Spaceballs, it was totally, absolutely mocking Star Wars. Obviously, back at that in the 80s, it was there was a lot
along with other films.
But
that's what Mel Brooks did.
Right. So obviously, this movie we can't compare it to that same level, but I think maybe they could have been taking hints from it. I'm not sure if you guys agree or not, but
I don't think this movie was mocking something.
No, I don't think it was meant to be a parody.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No.
Okay. You're entitled to your opinion.
I think they were trying to make like commentary about different issues, but I don't think they're really trying to mock the exploitation movies. I think they were using it it seemed like they were using those movies as a springboard to make social commentary and political commentary. That's the way it seemed to me.
Okay,
yeah,
so,
exactly.
so I'm outnumbered.
So.
I'm outnumbered 2-1 here, so I'll just raise my hand sheepishly and say I didn't arm myself for this podcast. You guys win.
Play the sound. Play the sound.
Oh, which sound would you like?
That sound.
Yeah,
it's okay. I made the sound for you.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty genuine.
Our viewers will hear the sound. You guys may, but.
Yeah.
Oh.
I tried.
Okay, well, we're coming up to an hour and 22 minutes. If you guys have nothing left to say about how it compares to other movies, I guess we can jump right into our overall opinion and a rating out of 10.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. So I think Ken won last time. So we'll say, Rosto, what was your overall opinion of the movie? Would you watch it again?
I don't think so. Maybe I will go through some certain scenes, just for kicks.
Hmm.
But otherwise, I wouldn't watch neither I would, buy or on Medium or something or go to cinema this movie. But I don't want to trash this movie completely, because it was a nice effort, and like I said, it was really unique. I think the filming crew was really, elaborating, and most of them really professional. Directing, I don't know, like we said at the beginning, that it seemed like they spent almost all the money and they didn't finish the whole movie, so then they had to maybe somehow patch it up, or I don't know.
Well,
So,
just so you know, I think they had a bigger budget on the second one, because there's a lot more conspiracy theories in the second one, and I think they had to increase the budget to make it work. So
yeah.
just so you know, okay.
Okay, I can't wait, actually. I hope Renata Richter is there.
Yeah, she is in the second one.
Okay.
Obviously, she's quite a bit older than the first one, so maybe you'll change your mind about her character. But
Okay, well, let's see.
Ageism.
Ageism, yeah, we're a bunch of ageists.
Yeah.
Okay, and how many points would you get from me? I would give it. I can give it 6 points out of 10.
6 out of 10. Okay, I suppose that's fair.
Yeah, that's pretty fair for effort and everything else.
Okay, awesome. Ken, what was your overall opinion and your rating?
Well, my overall opinion was, like I said, it's the story is pretty clear and it's pretty well laid out. I would have liked to have seen a bit snappier dialogue. I mean, more dialogue along the lines of the Nazis are the only guys who ever beat in a fair fight. I would have appreciated more of that instead of exposition and driving dialogue. And I guess the acting, I would have liked a bit more over the top acting from some of the people, other than, of course, my favorite Vivian Wagner. Like, I guess it seemed like at points they were trying to take the story a bit too seriously, as opposed to the exploitation movies back in the 70s and 80s, where they were a bit more grindhouse in their approach.
Okay.
But there are a lot of good things about the film, I think. The effects, I was impressed with most of the effects, except for the makeup effects on Washington. Those I found kind of distracting. The very last shot of the film, I thought was nice and, I guess nihilistic in the way that some of the, science fiction and exploitation films of the 70s and 80s were, where they had sort of downbeat endings, and I guess this one sort of does as well. And of course, the very shot right after the end, the credits have ended, where you see the surface of course, Mars. That was kind of foreboding as well.
Right.
So like I said before, it's not a horribly sloppily put together student film like some exploitation films are. Because some exploitation films back in those days, they were, they had low budgets, but they rose above because of the quality of the storytelling. But some are just like horrible and unwatchable. But this was it was watchable. I'd give it 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Okay.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
I don't know. Maybe I'm being generous, but
nice.
There were things to it. It had value, I thought.
So the great Ken thinks it's a 7 out of 10. So if that means anything to anybody out there, it means you gotta watch the movie.
That's just because of the Vivian Wagner, I think.
I'm not gonna lie. She has a lot of. I like that. I like the acting. I like the actress.
So
I thought she did a good job.
if she wasn't in the movie, would your rating be closer to a 5? You think?
6 anyway.
6. Okay, so technically we have 2 6s then and a 7 because of the spectacular.
I think her name is
performance.
Tina Sargent or Tara Sargent. The actress's name?
Peta or Peta?
Yeah, Peta Sargent. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she is worth 1 star at least.
1 star. Okay. Well.
Or 1 point. Yeah. At least. Probably.
Wait. 1 point.
Congratulations, you won.
Okay, that was the wrong sound effect. We'll just maybe bleep it out later. But anyways, okay.
And I'm looking forward to the sequel, though.
The sequel is. You just got to watch the sequel. Anyways.
Oh, I will.
So, anyways, for my overall opinion, now I'm the one who recommended this to Ken and Rosto, and Rosto was very begrudgingly wanting to review this movie because I found this movie. I mean, I wasn't going into it expecting the Hobbit caliber storytelling and budget or anything, but but I mean. The effects, I mean, yeah, there were some effects that weren't that great, but I mean, for what they did, I thought the effects were pretty neat. The style and the directing, okay, not perfect, but again, for what you're getting, I mean, I thought it told a very good story, and they did it with style, and I do realize my sense of humor can be very dry at times, so maybe that's why I found this movie, I think, a little better maybe than you two thought it. So I'm gonna say my overall opinion of this movie was good. Now, not from good in the perspective of a super blockbuster like let's say 1985 Back to the Future. But for a 2012 movie, I'm gonna say it's definitely watchable. So I'm gonna give it also from a movie perspective. I'll give it maybe a 5.5. But from a B movie perspective, I'm gonna give it an 8. So if you average it out, it's gonna be about a 6, somewhere in the 6.5 to 7 range as well. So. But definitely, if you haven't seen the movie and you're up for something a little lighter that doesn't take itself too seriously, I would definitely recommend seeing it. If you're not into this style of movie, then I would say probably skip it. But I mean, some people like mainstream type of movies and big budget. I mean, you can't say that they're bad. The mainstream stuff, but if you need something different or want something different, this is definitely the go-to movie for that. And if you like sci-fi movies, I'm a big sci-fi buff, so I was like, okay, let's pop this on and let's see what happens. So there we go. That was my rating. Right. We'll say 6.8 or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I think that's
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I think this
Thanks, Rosso.
is.
Thanks, Stu.
Yeah, so I think that's going to do it for this episode. Any commentary or links will be in the video description of the podcast. And as always, I would like to thank you for watching or listening, and I would like to thank Ken and Rosto for joining me today as well. It is highly appreciated.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I don't know if you either of you wanted to have any cheers. Yes, maybe in the next episode we can have some beer or something at the end, just to
maybe.
It's getting pretty warm in my office right now, so it would definitely be refreshing to have a beer.
So you're gonna need one.
I'm gonna definitely need one. Yeah, and also if you have any questions about the podcast, you can leave it in the comments section. You can also view or listen to more of these podcasts by liking our Facebook page, subscribing to the YouTube channel by using the watermark in the bottom right corner, or you can follow me on Twitter. You can also listen to these episodes on popular podcasting platforms such as Libsyn, iTunes, and Stitcher. As well, for a full list of podcasting platforms, please see the description or visit our website at multimedia.ca/media-channels. And I appreciate your support, and I hope you join us for the next episode installment, which will be Iron Sky 2 review. And remember, all presidents who start a war in their first term get re-elected.